What if the greatest teacher of your life had 8 arms and lived beneath the waves? In this unforgettable story of healing and connection, a weary filmmaker returns to the wild South African coast and forms a bond with an octopus unlike any he's known. Set in the swaying silence of a kelp forest, this journey explores the raw beauty of the ocean, the intelligence of one remarkable creature, and the quiet path back to oneself. If you've ever felt lost, numb, or distant from the natural world, this story will remind you, sometimes the ocean knows how to put us back together. The sea had always whispered to me, but I'd stopped listening long ago. When I first returned to the kelp forest, I was hollow, more ghost than man. My name is Kaylin Muir. For 2 decades, I chased storms, deserts, and dying species with a camera slung over my shoulder. I had filmed the last dance of a snow leopard and the twilight migration of African elephants, but somewhere along the way, my own life unraveled. My marriage dissolved slowly, like sugar in warm tea. My daughter Mara, once my curious shadow in tide pools, no longer called. The world I had once captured so vividly now felt distant, blurred. My camera lay untouched on a shelf for almost a year. I thought, maybe if I returned to the place where it all began, the wild South African coast, I might hear something again. I rented a weather-worn cabin near False Bay, on the edge of the world, where the Atlantic meets the rocks with a cold, ancient fury. The kelp forest stretched below the surface, mysterious and alive, swaying like cathedral curtains in the green light. I began diving again. No tanks, just breath. The cold water stunned my skin, but it brought clarity, painful but necessary. At first, I simply observed. I followed fish trails, watched pajama sharks slip through shadows, and let the current carry me like driftwood. I had no goals, no script, only silence and salt. Then, on a gray morning cloaked in mist, I saw her. She was the size of my hand, tucked into the hollow of a rock like a secret. An octopus, barely visible, her skin mimicking sand and shells so perfectly I nearly missed her. But her eye gave her away. A single intelligent eye, watching me. For a few minutes, neither of us moved. The world around us shifted, the seaweed danced, fish shimmered, but we held still, caught in a moment suspended in water and wonder. I surfaced, lungs burning, but heart stirred. The next day, I returned, and the next. For weeks, I swam through the kelp to find her. Sometimes she wasn't there. Sometimes she was waiting, hidden just beneath a curtain of fronds. Slowly, she began to emerge. First, a tentative arm, then a full reveal. She watched me with that unblinking, curious eye, and I watched her, not as a filmmaker, but as something else. A student, perhaps. I brought my camera, not to document her, but to remind myself that the world still held stories worth telling. Through the lens, I watched her explore the seafloor with her arms, using tools to pry open shells, shifting her skin from coral-like patterns to slick obsidian in seconds. She was a master of disguise, a creature of both logic and poetry. One morning, I extended my hand toward her, not to touch, only to offer. She reached back. Tentatively, her arm unfurled toward my fingers. The suckers gripped gently, inquisitively. It was not possession, it was acknowledgement. I wept in my mask. That touch changed me. Over time, I witnessed more than behavior. I saw her choices, her hesitations, her courage. When a pajama shark came too close, she wrapped herself in shells like armor. I saw her camouflage so precisely that even the sea forgot she was there. But I also saw her play, chasing fish, gliding with unexpected grace, pushing boundaries, and she watched me too. When I brought a broken starfish closer, she reached for it and spun it like a wheel. When I swam slower, she mimicked my pace. We were not companions in the human sense, but we had an agreement, one rooted in trust and time. I began journaling again, writing letters I would never send. "Dear Mara," I would begin. Today she took my lens cap and rolled it away like a coin. My daughter would never read them, but in writing, I remembered what it meant to speak softly and mean it. Then came the storm. A violent surge hit the coast, and the kelp forest turned into a maelstrom. I could not dive for 4 days. The winds howled against the cliffs, and I feared for her more than I thought possible. When the sea calmed, I returned immediately. Her den was empty. I searched, combed the reef, checked every rock hollow I knew. Days passed. Doubt crept in. Had the shark returned? Had the storm claimed her? The ocean gives and the ocean takes. I sat on the shore, the salt burning my throat. On the 7th day, I saw her again. Scarred, slower, but alive. She had lost a limb, one arm severed clean, but she moved with defiance. I approached quietly. She did not retreat. Instead, she swam toward me and touched my mask with what remained. I felt her resilience pour through the water like warmth. From then on, our bond deepened. She let me witness things I had only read about. I saw her court a male, dance with chromatic brilliance, and later guard her eggs, hundreds of them, delicate white capsules suspended like stars under a ledge. She stopped hunting. She grew thin. I knew what was coming. Octopuses only mate once. After laying eggs, the female rarely eats. She gives herself entirely to the next generation. I visited daily, sitting silently in the cold, watching her tend to them with her remaining arms. She never looked away from me. One morning, she was gone. Her body lay near the den, pale and still, gently rocking with the tide. Her eyes, once so alert, were closed. I held my breath, then let it go. The sea had taken her back. I surfaced in silence. On shore, I sat with the horizon burning orange. Something had shifted. I did not cry, not out of numbness, but reverence. She had taught me more in those months than years of human noise ever could. She taught me that intelligence is not limited to words, that trust is built in quiet gestures, that healing begins the moment we allow ourselves to feel again. I began writing with intent. I contacted Mara. I told her about the octopus, about the forest beneath the sea, about the way the kelp brushed against my skin like forgiveness. She replied tentatively, like a diver at the edge of cold water. We met a month later. I took her diving. I watched my daughter swim beside me, her long hair drifting like kelp. And for a moment, I imagined the octopus watching us from some secret nook, her legacy pulsing quietly through the tide. Life, after all, is not about how long we hold on, but how deeply we connect while we can. Epilogue. They say the ocean forgets no one. I still dive most mornings. The forest has changed. The tides shift, the species migrate, but I find her echoes in every clever crab, every shadow that blinks unexpectedly. And sometimes, when I reach out my hand in the water, I still feel the memory of hers, wrapped gently around my fingers, not to hold, just to know I was never truly alone. Months have passed. Mara now joins me often, her laughter ringing across the rocks like wind chimes. She's studying marine biology, says she wants to understand what I saw, what I felt. One evening, while sitting beside the fire, she asked, "Do you think she knew you were broken?" I didn't answer at first, just stared into the flames. But I think she did. Maybe not in the way we understand, but in the way the ocean understands a storm before it comes. Mara smiled. Then she fixed us both. The forest has become my cathedral. I bring students now, curious minds, eager hands. I teach them to dive slow, to watch, not disturb, to listen. Sometimes we find an octopus, never the same, but each time I feel that flicker again, that whisper from the deep. I still write letters to Mara, though she lives just down the road. Habits of the heart are hard to break. I write about the tides, the whales that breach in the distance, the otters that sleep with hands entwined, and always, always about her, the octopus who reminded me that beneath the silence life still sings. And if you ever find yourself lost, adrift, or numb, go to the sea, not to escape, but to remember, to listen. You may find a teacher there, hiding in plain sight, waiting to take your hand with gentle arms and lead you home. Some connections defy explanation, but they change us forever. Bond with Octopus is more than a story about the sea. It's a reflection on trust, grief, and the surprising ways nature reaches out to us when we need it most. In the cold green depths, one man found more than a creature. He found a companion, a mirror, a spark of life. If this story touched you, share it with someone who needs reminding. Healing can come from the most unexpected places, and sometimes the ocean whispers the way home.